Mr. Christian stared at me in an unsettling way and continued, "Marcus, I need you to understand that as long as you keep my supply steady, you'll be safe. The moment you flinch, the life you've become so accustomed to goes away. I don't care what it takes. Make it happen." As I made my way back to my night job as the projectionist at the local drive-in, his words swirled around in my mind. I hadn't told him yet that the drive-in was in line as the next local business to be shut down. I needed time and a plan. All I knew was that I had to make closing night count, and that was merely 6 days away. Fitting that they planned it for a Friday the 13th, it felt like a massively unfortunate loss to the community and to myself. I'd worked there ever since I was 15. It was my first job. How I loved it back in the day when it was booming. Opening night years ago was such a rush, such an adventure, and I was fortunate enough to be one of the original employees. No matter what else I had going on over the years, I always made a point to keep what my parents used to call my meager job as the projectionist. I'd built quite a life for myself outside of that, but that life never had as much value to me as those nights when I'd settle into my booth at the drive-in. They always brought me back to a time when life was simpler, when I didn't owe anyone anything, when my life was my own to live. I'd spend hours lovingly and meticulously checking the film reels for damage, splicing them together, then threading them through the projector mechanisms. I'd ensure that every film had the smoothest run, and I became known for the seamless viewing experience I provided. Pretty soon, everyone started calling me Q Mark, a little insider's joke in the industry. But it stuck, and I was proud of it. I built up a pretty successful empire outside of being a projectionist. I've never admitted it to anyone, because it's too bizarre to explain to the world and the people I love. But Mr. Christian played a huge role in the development of my business empire. It was as if it had happened overnight, and although it took many decades, it did all seem to happen at once. But that's a story for later, when I'm not running late to my meager job. "Hey, Q Mark, what's spinning on the reels tonight?" Christy greets me as I walk into the snack shack. She was hired 2 years ago, young and full of ambition, just like I was when I first started. Not the most observant person, or maybe just her way of making small talk. She asks me this at the start of every shift, as if it wasn't plastered all over the old signboard outside. "Hey, Christy, tonight's big shows are Back in Time and Fearmonger. I heard they're pretty good, but we'll have to see how much popcorn is left at the end of the shows. Two kind of corny-sounding movies, in my opinion, but that just means a bit of extra popcorn and a few other snacks to pass the time by. I noticed about a year into my job here that the good movies always had popcorn left. I started a little hobby of writing reviews on each movie. I carry notebooks around so I can keep track of all of my projects. I have a special one for the drive-in, where I write notes on each movie and track numbers of guests. I'm a bit of a nerd, and it's become more depressing these days with numbers starting to dwindle, but it's still a fun pastime, acting like a movie critic. Every movie is judged by how much popcorn is left. If I was into the movie, I'd always have about half of a bucket left. If I found the movie boring, I'd get through most of my container. So everything started boiling down to how much popcorn was left at the end of a show, and I'd write my review based on that. I sometimes submitted them to the newspapers in the early days if there was anything particularly noteworthy. They started asking for a weekly column, and it became a bit of a part-time thing for me. Another welcomed escape from the noise that the rest of my life created. After I gathered my snacks from the snack shack and grabbed my key for my booth, I made my way over to my favorite place. The booth wasn't anything special, just a portable with its own washroom and lights. A few decades ago, they added a heater for me. It's old, but it keeps on chugging away. Perfect for a cool October night like tonight. Once I was settled into the booth and had everything set up, I glanced out the window to get a sense of what our audience would be for the evening. A few cars scattered in every row, some brave high school kids that set up couches on the backs of their pickup trucks and are braving the fresh night air to get a unique viewing experience. They aren't technically supposed to do that, but we made an agreement that as long as they don't block anyone's view or cause a ruckus, they can do as they please. They've been pretty good. We're one of the last drive-ins that still have the radio speakers that attach to the vehicles. It's such an essential part of the show, but only newcomers seem to use them, which suits me fine. The kids usually bring those new portable noise boxes. They call them lifesavers, which I find a bit dramatic, but I guess they aren't wrong. As I get ready to start the first film, a sense of pride washes over me. Nothing brings me more joy than rolling the first film. The excitement is in the air. It's a hit. We haven't had bad reviews in decades. The drive-in used to have some strange reviews back in the day, about it being the last place some patrons were seen, but that's merely coincidence and doesn't reflect on the establishment at all. It's just a silly story people tell, usually before the premiere of a scary film, probably to heighten the nerves and make the experience feel more real. Tonight's debut is a double trouble feature. The spooky movies always do well this time of year, with Halloween approaching. Lights, camera, action,